I'm Tim, welcome to our channel, and thank you for logging on. Today we are discussing the flagship of Greubel Forsey's 2018 novelties. It is the 33-piece white gold limited series GMT Earth, a variation on the Greubel Forsey GMT now with 360-degree visual access to its titanium hand-engraved and lacquered GMT display, a combination of three-dimensional globe and 24-hour time zone indicator. The watch you see here represents the flagship of the Greubel Forsey Travel Time collection. The watch is large and it has a purposeful size to it. You may ask, why is a Greubel Forsey of this nature so big? Well, why is the Met so big in New York? There's a great deal to exhibit. You can see that manifest on the dial of the watch. Now, it's important to always show a watch to give scale and perspective. This is a large timepiece, there is no doubt. The timepiece, 45.5 millimeters across the round of the case, on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, cuts an imposing stance. The profile of the watch is significant, however, the ergonomics are excellent. As you'll find, the timepiece, though 45.5 millimeters in diameter, is a relatively compact 53.5 millimeters across the wrist, so though my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, it easily accommodates this large watch. Now, the watch has immense depth by design, 16.2 millimeters thick, but keep in mind, 11.55 millimeters of that depth accounted for by the depth of the movement itself. The movement is almost 12 millimeters thick with incredible visual access for the fortunate owner. Now, the timepiece does feature a unique combination of haute de gamme casing and finish with a versatile natural vulcanized rubber strap. By Greubel Forsey, you can see it has characteristic style with a off-centered character line for a bit of calculated asymmetry, and you'll note semi-curved spring bars so that the lugs can be drilled comparatively close to the case without obstructing the movement of the strap. Though it's close coupled and aesthetically pleasing, there is no restriction on its movement down and around the tight curve of a smaller wrist. You'll also note that the mantra-like Francophone dedication to innovation, traditional watchmaking, the keeping of time by beautiful manufacture, finish, and innovation, all expressed on the underside of the strap as well as the flanks of the case. Of course, a grand watch deserves a buckle to match, and Greubel Forsey does not hold back. You'll note, just as the case is made of what's known as gray gold, or a homogeneous straight-through 18-karat white gold that never needs to be replated, so too is the clasp crafted of 18-karat gray gold. It's a clever system. In addition to being curved to match the underside of your wrist, it features a leaf spring architecture that allows it to snap open when desired and hold itself resolutely closed when necessary. You'll also note anything but a default design. It features the same clever differential finish on its flanks as well as relief surfacing seen on the watch itself. And we should mention, by getting a bit closer and perhaps favoring focus, that the detailing of the case is as exquisite as the detailing of the movement. You may think that the watch is large and that's its principal measure of visual impact, but it is also subtle and beautiful. You can see the relief text grafted onto the flanks of the case with proprietary screws fixing it. You'll also note differential finish, including beveling, on the GMT adjuster, so even the small component intricately finished. And if you look from an angle, you can see that the lugs, which are bold and have a gorgeous sculptural form, also feature a clever convex surfacing, so their optically smooth polish almost has the appearance of a sculpted concave mirror. You'll note the same treatment lavished on the crown side of the movement with the Greubel Forsey logo blazoned top. The crown is an absolute pleasure to use, both in terms of its knurling and its detent action. Now, moving to the dial, it's important to note that every Greubel Forsey is designed to be seen, not necessarily by those who might gawk, but by those who might own this timepiece and those who might appreciate it. It has a gorgeous 360-degree aspect, allowing vision of the 360-degree globe. Now, you can see the North Pole, you can see the equatorial plane, and for the first time on a Greubel Forsey GMT, you can see the pulchritude of the antipode, that is the South Pole, with blue lacquered oceans surrounding a hand-lapped grained finish on the metal of Antarctica. Now, we'll talk a bit more about the globe as well as the 3D sapphire is exceptionally difficult to achieve, but it's important to note that the dial itself is a feast, a panoply of finish and surfaces and functions, all logically arrayed. We may as well start with the two standout features. First, the tourbillon. Though Greubel Forsey has created a number of compound tourbillon timepieces, including double tourbillon and even quadruple tourbillon, the firm has found that the most effective way to achieve chronometric precision with a single tourbillon is to combine a 24-second circuit, so the 86 parts of the tourbillon and carriage make a full circuit every 24 seconds, and to incline the assembly at 25 degrees relative to its bridge. Combined with the Phillips terminal curve of the hairspring, you have a highly resistant structure that helps to even out the effects of gravity and different positions on the precision of the watch. You'll also note adjacent that 360-degree globe, and we get back to the depth of the movement. You have this diagonal access to the different planes of the bridges and the plates. The different components can be seen not just from the top, but from their flanks, revealing their structural form, the engineering inherent in their execution, but also their fine finish from every angle. That's the logic of having a large watch with a deep movement and a deep dial. You'll note a couple of practical measures taken. There is a 24-hour reference ring that surrounds the globe with each of the hours in 24-hour format correctly aligned as the watch is set with the representative cities. So if you measure against one of the cities and read against the silver and black ring, which represents day and night, you will be able to gauge the world time by looking at, yes, the world. You'll also note that there are two different time displays. One is stepped using the GMT switcher at what would conventionally be 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock on our smoked sapphire local hours. So you have your local hours, and you can always read the globe to recognize whether your reference city, your current city, is displaying AM or PM time, and you can do this for both of the displays. Independent displays, there will be a loom shot at the end of the video because you can see that the center hours, minutes, and seconds do have luminescent hands, delta indices. The plinth for the display of time locally is a smoked sapphire that's mounted on black polished screws and physically elevated above the beautifully frosted plane of the bridge beneath. You'll also note adjacent a white gold reserve de manche, or indicateur reserve de manche, your 72-hour power reserve manually wound. And though you can't quite see them from this side, underneath both time zones, there are two coaxially mounted mainspring barrels in series with fast operation to even out the torque release from maximum wind to minimum wind. There is a decoupling system so you cannot accidentally overwind this manually wound timepiece. 72 hours of power reserve despite the elaborate system of independent time displays, the 360-degree globe, and the high-energy 24-second tourbillon. Now, turning the watch over once more, you can see how the watch accurately portrays all 24 of the world's primary time zones. If you can't perhaps line up the 360-degree span of the globe against its double-sided 24-hour display, you can easily do so using the sapphire discs with an emblematic city representing each one of the world's 24 principal time zones. Outboard, you can see standard time, and for those cities that use summertime, and you'll note they are in white rather than black, you read against the center scale. So, for example, 15 read against New York would be summertime for New York, so it would be 1500, which is the equivalent of 3 in the afternoon. Now you will note there is a small numeral at the center of summertime. Summertime and the numeral collectively signifying the time you're reading as well as the number of the watch. There is double numbering, 05 of 33, 05 at center, so it's always easy to know at a glance which watch you're looking at. The timepiece, featuring an extraordinary amount of fine finish, is also inventive in terms of how it applies that finish. It's one thing to create a watch that's beautifully made and thoughtfully detailed, but there are endless iterations of finishing cliches in Swiss watchmaking. The cliches of the iterators, facile solutions generally, over-application of striped Côte de Genève, or excessive use of engine-turned overlapping perlage. You'll note here the dominant finish includes satin grain on the flanks of the bridges, so a grained brushed finish on the flanks of the bridges. You'll see a mirrored and optically smooth anglage on the edge of every bridge, as well as a frosted finish on their top. Now, the material composing the bridges and the plates is actually known as nickel silver, or my short. It's a combination of nickel, copper, and zinc, constructed much in the fashion of an old pocket watch. It's a sort of vintage material. Here, a palladium treatment has been applied to create a brighter, more silver tone than the natural golden hue of this material. You'll also note all of the screw heads with chamfered slots in between, black polished. Every screw head black polished, and you'll note everything that turns perfectly black when I move the watch flush to the camera is in fact black polished, or poly noir. That's why, for example, the entirety of the balance bridge, like the screw heads, turns black when I move it flush to the camera. It's so optically smooth that it reflects light only in one direction. So from many angles, it will appear perfectly black. You'll also note two different types of screws. Beautifully oxidized blue, large fixing screws for the bridges on the reverse side, and on the obverse side, you'll note smaller black polished screws. The watch does feature both. 60 jewels, and they are upscale jewels with a concave olive profile to better hold oil and retain that lubricant over the long term. You will note many of them are set in golden chaton. Again, a nod to heritage. That is one of the cardinal values of Greubel Forsey, preserving the best elements of the past while innovating. A timepiece that is remarkably progressive in its design and at the same time firmly rooted in traditional watchmaking. You have a free-sprung balance to better take and hold precise regulation, because as extravagant as this watch is, as fine as its finishing is in detail, at the end of the day, Greubel and Forsey both, the men themselves, believe that watches should keep good time, and this watch does exactly that. An extraordinary timepiece. You can learn more about this and the entire Greubel Forsey collection on our website, govbergwatches.com. And we return briefly with the Greubel Forsey GMT Earth. When the sun sets on the mini globe, the primary time zone, hours and minutes, remain visible. The ultimate travel watch. See it and learn more on govbergwatches.com.